All right, we are continuing. I put it down. We are continuing our study on the fruit of the Spirit. We've talked about love. We're in the midst of joy now, talking about joy. And we're on the word within joy. We find some words that help us better understand what joy is. And the first one we did was enthusiasm. We finished that last week. Today we're going to continue talking about contentment. Contentment. Your handout looks like this. I'm going to just review the part that we did last week without trying to reteach it or trying not to reteach it, even though I know some of you missed it, but I don't want to take too long on that. Contentment, the opposite word is dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction. Contentment is dissatisfaction. A lot of people, if you don't have contentment, they find themselves just sitting around. I mean, just feeling this dissatisfied feeling. There must be more. There's something else I need. And so contentment is the opposite of that. And we want to find that in the Lord, and it's part of joy. And so here's our definition of contentment. What do you need? This? I'm going to toss it. It's not going to work. There you go. It would fly all over. The conviction that Christ's power, purpose, and provision are sufficient for any circumstance. The three blanks are conviction, sufficient, and any. Now, last week I spent quite a bit of time going over the meaning of that definition word by word. And so if you ever need a week, want something you missed, just let me know. If you can't find it, I have a YouTube page, and on my YouTube page, every one of these lessons I upload so you can watch them free. All right, we just started here by talking about this first one. We long for contentment. We long for contentment. There's a desire we have to be content. Now, we may not call it that. It might be that what we find ourselves doing is continually searching for something, hoping we get to the point where we're satisfied with it. And so that's what contentment is. Contentment is searching, is something we long for. We long to get to the place where we don't feel something is still missing, or there's something more we need. That's contentment. Now let's look a little bit more about it. But the next one is, we sometimes try to fill an emptiness in our lives that only God can satisfy, and we don't even know we're doing it. We don't even know we're trying to fill a spot that is reserved for God. God has put in each human, I believe, a God-shaped vacuum, we call it. There's a scientist who, his name was Pascal, and he discovered the vacuum. And it isn't that he created the vacuum. Maybe the vacuum cleaner, as you all are familiar with, uses the science of vacuum to suck. Okay, that's what it does. But he discovered a vacuum. He discovered how the vacuum works. And he was a believer. He was a wonderful believer in God. He was a scientist, and he saw God in science so much. Fascinating. He's like in the 17th century, but fascinating guy. But he is the one who first said there's a God-shaped vacuum. And what a vacuum is a place that nothing is in. And it will, because nothing's there, it desires to fill it. And so it will, that's how it creates the idea of the sucking that a vacuum does, is it wants to fill that spot that's empty. And what he's saying is, we all in us, we have a place that is not filled. It's empty before we have the Lord, and nothing else will fit in it. We will continue to have that space that we'll always try to fill until we let God fill that space, because he's the only one it fits. the only one that can fit and satisfy and stop that sucky feeling of not having it filled. The thing is, if we don't know, we'll keep trying this and trying that. If I just had more money, so I have to get more work or spend less. I don't know if people think there's two sides to how to have more money. One is to make more, one is to spend less, but that's harder. Um, we also think, oh, if I just had a better car, if I just had a better husband, if I just had better kids, I just had any husband, whatever it is, we start looking to fill this emptiness, and only God can satisfy that place. So I believe that's where we look left off, right? So there are three words that we want to go over that help explain what causes dissatisfaction. Three words help explain what causes dissatisfaction. The first word is longings. 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 Let me read this passage, Psalm 63, wonderful psalm by that I like to read, but we're going to read it to understand a little bit about longings. O God, you are my God. I earnestly search for you. My soul thirsts for you. My whole body longs for you in this parched and weary land where there is no water. I have seen you in your sanctuary and gazed upon your power and glory. Your unfailing love is better than life itself. How I praise you. I will praise you as long as I live, lifting up my hands to you in prayer. You satisfy me more than the richest feast. I will praise you with songs of joy. Longings. Longings, sometimes we have to come face to face with the fact that there are empty places in our lives that haven't been filled. This isn't, as a believer, we never have to have that God-shaped vacuum unfilled. But there may still be areas of our lives where we say, there is something more I long for. And so what we have to learn is, like the psalmist, that even though he satisfies our spiritual need, we may have longings. We may have longings. It's okay to have them. And it's okay to not even have them filled. That's part of life. But for believers, for everybody, they can sometimes say, if I have a longing, then the Lord must not be enough. We have to understand we may have longings, but that doesn't have to make us dissatisfied, because we can give them to the Lord and we can see that He is better than life. He satisfies more than rich foods. He is much better than the husband or the money or all that. If we let him satisfy our spiritual needs, if there are longings that go on, we can still say, in the midst of this, I still have the Lord, and that's enough. Christ is enough for me. But that doesn't mean you might not long sometimes. It's okay, as long as it doesn't run our lives. The next word is yearnings. Yearnings. And they're similar words. A yearning, it might be wanting more than we have. We have, but we yearn for more. We have love, but we want more love. We want more passion, more hope, more rest, more contentment. Let me read these. Ephesians 3:19 through 20. Is that what it says? And then the 4 to 14. First off, I want to read a proverb. I didn't even put it on here. You might want to jot this down. It's Proverbs 30, verse 15. Proverbs, it is on there? It's on your verse paper, but it's not on this card. And this is a verse that it kind of is the idea that causes dissatisfaction is if we get this attitude. A leech has twin daughters named Gimme and Gimme More. And one of the challenges in our culture is a gimme attitude, right? Not every culture has that. We don't always realize that till we live in another culture where they don't expect more. So because that's all they have, that's all their mother had, that's all their grandmother had. And so they don't have that. But here we have to be careful of give the leech that worldly possessions can have. That attitude of give me more, give me more. Someone asked a millionaire once how much money he would need to be fully content. And he said, just $1 million more than I have. And we want to be sure we avoid that. However, let's look at this verse. Verse 19 and 20. May you experience the love of Christ, though it is too great to understand fully. Then you will be made complete with all the fullness of life and power that comes from God. Now all glory to God, who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. Allowing the desire for more, even our desire for more of the Lord, can keep us, if we allow that to keep us from recognizing and rejoicing in the love, passion, hope, rest, and even contentment that we already have. It's important that our yearnings for more, which may be more of the Lord, more of him, but even in that, we need to be sure we don't throw away contentment because we want more. The more should motivate us to spend more time with him, but it should not make us dissatisfied with all he's already blessed us with. Because it's okay to long for a deeper relationship and more. It's good, but it's not okay to live a dissatisfied life and to say that until I get to some point, I won't have enough. Because he is enough. And we have to learn to love and accept that Christ is enough, even as he once draws us to go deeper and have more with him. And then verses 4 to 15 of chapter 4. Then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever they sound like the truth. Instead, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. I think sometimes there's this fine line because we want more of him, so we want that, but we don't want to sit content with I'm as far in the Lord as I want to be. Yet we want to have our needs fully know that he is enough, but to draw closer and desire to be closer to him all the time, and to just mature in our relationship and mature in recognizing the lies of the enemy. Shouldn't we be better at it as we grow more in the Lord? And that will be less deceived. And the last one is cravings. The hope that of finding something that will satisfy the hunger we feel in the stomach of our soul. Cravings. Psalm 34 speaks of his cravings, how he satisfies that, how the psalmist did. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Oh, the joys of those who take refuge in him. Fear the Lord, his godly people. For those who fear him will have all they need. Even strong young lions sometimes go hungry, but those who trust in the Lord will lack no good thing. Pardon? Oh. We were made for more than this world has to offer us. God designed us to not be able to be satisfied with anything or everything in the world. Our longings, our yearnings, our cravings, and hopes are telling us there isn't enough love, peace, hope, friendship, and intimacy on this earth to completely satisfy us. We will always want more. We will always want more if we try to make the things of this world satisfy us. We will always want more because they can't. The more we want, the more we long for is Jesus. Even as we are satisfied or content because we have him, those longings and cravings and yearnings that come should draw us to want more of him, to know him more, to know who he is, to know his love, to know his voice. That desire should draw us closer to him. Still being content and not looking for the world to satisfy, but just wanting more of him all the time. Contentment is not automatic. Contentment must be learned. Contentment is not automatic. It must be learned. We have to learn contentment. We learn it by first off, by realizing it isn't going to just fall on us one day. We're not going to, if we search long enough and try hard enough, someday we'll suddenly, boom, I'll be content. Because Paul wrote in Philippians 4:11-13, he said, he's sharing some of his needs and things, but then he says this, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And here's the key. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Through him who strengthens me. That's the key. The key is to know that whatever else, that's why we can learn contentment, because whatever I lack, the Lord is enough. You know, I've said this before, I learned it the hard way, or the only way to really learn it, and that is you never know that God is really all you need until he's all you have. If you're in a situation, there are times we're in a situation where we have no one else, we have nothing else. When we get in that situation, the Lord is enough, and we find it's true. He really is all we need when he's all we have. It may not be that we are hungry, it may not be that all that, but there can be times when we have such needs in certain areas that are not being filled by anything else except him. And we have to learn to rely on him. Some of you are nodding fiercely. And I think that that's probably an indication you've one time, at least in your life, been in that spot where he really was all you had and he was enough. And now you know. Contentment comes when we allow God to cultivate. Contentment comes when we allow God to cultivate a heart of contentment in us. 2 simple steps to cultivate a heart of contentment. That's why I said you have to, it's a learned thing. You can't just have it drop on you. And so there are times when people should be content. They should be. They have the Lord, they're living, and he's providing, and yet they aren't content. And they should be. And they have to learn, just like Paul did, to be content because of him. Here's the 2 simple steps. 1, accept our present reality. Accept our present reality. That doesn't necessarily say I'm going to stay there, but accept that this place I'm in right now is Indonesia, and I don't have English-speaking friends, and therefore I don't have friends I can share my heart with deeply because I can't say it and they can't hear it. they can't understand it. And I sound like a 6-year-old when I try to say it in their language. That was the reality. Is Christ enough then? Can I be content then? That's accepting our reality. I am single. I don't have a husband. I won't ever have children. That's a reality. Do I go about my life dissatisfied? Do I go about my life saying, oh, I'm lacking? God didn't meet all my needs? Christ is enough. I am content. I really am. And it isn't because I wouldn't want a husband or children. It's because He is enough and He has given me a wonderful life in His way. Now, I've shared two of my areas times from my experience. One is an ongoing one. One is, praise God, even though He got me through those years with no women, no person to share with much at all. I mean, I had a wonderful friend in my neighbor Iburita, but she didn't know the Lord and she didn't know English, and I didn't know her language that well. But that was a season, and I could be content in that season. I didn't whine and I didn't cry and all the time while I was over there. I had a good time while I was over there. God was very real to me because He was enough. And I knew it more then than I'd ever had an opportunity to learn it. Some of our situations change and our contentment can go right through them. And some of times we're in a situation that will not change. And still, because He is enough, we can have contentment. Always longing for more of Him, but not looking for the world to satisfy what only He can fill. So we accept our present reality, and I believe we need to get the Lord involved. If we're having trouble learning contentment, step 2, ask God for genuine contentment. Not the contentment that says, I'm fine, and isn't really fine. Ask God for genuine contentment. I believe He will answer that prayer. Pardon? Genuine. We can ask the Lord whenever we feel a lack or we want spiritual growth or difference in our lives. We can ask the Lord, and we don't have to struggle to do what He wants and what He's promised. We don't have to work at it without Him. We can ask Him even here. We don't want a contentment that says it's fine, and meanwhile, in the darkness of our room at night, we're dissatisfied and we're crying out, not even to the Lord, but just crying. And it's because we're saying we're content, but we're not. But we can ask for genuine contentment. Now I want to read 2 Corinthians 2:12, 12:10. I don't know why I'm doing that. 2 Corinthians 12:10. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content, Paul writes, with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Some versions, instead of weaknesses, it says for things that are lacking in my life, things that might be missing to us. He says, I rejoice in those because when I'm weak, I haven't given you the last blank, so just take a breath. You'll be okay. I'm building up to it, okay? When we're in that state, even then, that's what Paul was feeling. He says, I can rejoice in them because when I'm weak, I'm strong because the Lord will come. And here it is. Contentment says, I have Christ and He is enough. I have Christ and He is enough. I heard a song There's always a song, Sherry. There's always a song. You think I would sing better, but I have a song, and it was called "Give Me You," and I was listening along to a tape, to a CD. It might have been a tape in those days. It's a long time ago. It was an 8-track or something. Anyway, but the song stuck with me. It's just very simple. This is the chorus. It's this. Give me you, Lord. No other comfort can fill me like you. I'm tired of emotion, tired of devotion. All I'm asking, Lord, is give me you. Sometimes we get caught up in emotion and even devotion. If I just do, if I just give, if I just serve, if I just, maybe I'll feel different. And maybe, and have to realize it comes down to this. Give me you, Lord. No other comfort can fill me like you. I'm tired of emotion, tired of devotion. All I'm asking, Lord, is give me you. All I really need is you. That's contentment. And when we're lacking it, we want to grow in it, we say, Lord, give me you. You alone can satisfy. All right, I have another handout.